Hey, and welcome back to our next segment in our Guitar 101 Beginner Guitar course. Today we are going to take a look at picks and talk about the different ways that people hold picks. I'm going to explain to you why I hold picks the way that I do, how I picked up the habit of holding it that way, and why I like playing with it. But we'll also be looking at the different kinds of picks. What are the different sorts of picks, the materials, and how do these affect your tone when playing guitar? So stay tuned, we're going to take a look at the world of picks. I always like to highlight the guitar that I'm demoing on for each video. In this beginner series, I'm showing you a range of entry-level guitars. Today we are going to be working with a recent Squier Affinity Jazzmaster. Beautiful guitar. Squier Affinity Jazzmaster, beautiful guitar. This is in a burgundy mist metallic. I ordered it on Reverb and it had some shipping damage, but not a huge problem, something that I could easily overcome with just a little work, and otherwise plays fantastic. I love the Jazzmaster style. It's among the most comfortable cuts in my opinion, the way that it holds onto your body, the way that it's balanced. Just beautiful, excellent guitar, beautiful entry into offset guitars that is non-symmetrical, that it's got, you know, an elongated body, but just very, very nice guitar, especially for the price range, and one that if you are into this vibe and aesthetic. And the Jazzmaster has single coils, but they are more powerful. People often refer to them as soap bars because they look like an old-timey bar of soap, and they have the single tone aesthetics and twang, but tend to be higher output, more powerful, a little punchier. So great choice if you are looking at one of these, and I'll be doing a whole video on, I've got multiple levels of these, and we'll look at them in more detail later, but just wanted to highlight the guitar that I'm demoing on today. So there are two basic ways of striking a note on your guitar. One of those is using a pick. Now we'll be looking at in a different lesson using fingers to strike the notes, but today we're going to go with the old standard, using a pick. Now picks go back to wood, bone, and horn picks, and they tended to be much thicker, and we'll talk in a little while about the different kinds of picks that are available, and you can still get these kind of old style picks. They're often sometimes called gypsy picks and that sort of thing because their association with early gypsy jazz. But picks develop now. Today most picks are going to be made of some sort of plastic, nylon, that sort of thing, and there are a lot of different kinds. I'm going to show you later some of the different kinds that are out there and talk about the tonal differences that you're going to get with them. But for right now, just using a regular plastic pick, a medium or heavy or light, I mean any sort of just the regular gauges is basically where you want to start. Now again, we'll talk in a little while about all the different kinds of picks that are out there, and it's fun to explore them and to explore the different ways that they affect your tone and attack. But right now we're just going to be starting with a basic Fender heavy, just a basic gauge pick. Okay, so I'm going to start with the way that I don't hold it, and I'm going to explain in a little while how I do hold it, and it's not the way that you see a lot of people holding it, but I'll explain why I do it. Now most people are going to hold the pick just basically like that, either with their hand open or a little bit closed, and they're going to strike it bing 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 like that. Okay, maybe they use two fingers, they do that, something like that, but this is often how you see it, and there's a lot of thumb and finger movement happening there. Okay, now I'm not saying this, there's no right or wrong way to hold it. You're going to hold it the way that it feels good for you. Everybody's going to be a little different, okay? And so there's lots of different ways, and I encourage you to explore just trying holding it different ways, see how it affects your tone and so forth. Some people will leave their hand open and actually rest it somewhere on the guitar, and either on the pick guard or on a piece of the electronics or something, and then that gives them kind of a reference point for doing that. Now that's fine. Again, I'm not going to tell you this is the right way or this is the wrong way. The problem with that is if you really learn and your muscle memory develops around putting fingers in a specific spot, it will be harder to transition between guitars, and it's also going to be harder for you to move more freely when you are getting into particularly strumming and things like that, where it's just not, it's going to be hard to get a good strum while your finger is there, you see. So again, there's lots and lots of different ways that people hold picks. Now let me tell you the way I hold a pick and the way I would encourage you to at least try out and see if you can get it to work for you. Now this is developed from the way that the Gypsy Jazz guitarists, the way that they held picks. And specifically, of course, the most famous, and this guy is somebody that if you want to learn about guitar and the way that guitar playing developed, particularly in the 20th century, go look up this guy, Django Reinhardt. Amazing guitarist, really cool guy, gypsy jazz musician. He was truly not just in the style of it, he was a gypsy, he was a Roma from Europe, and very interesting aspect about him is that he has tremendous influence on music, particularly guitar playing, particularly electric guitar playing, because of his influence on Les Paul, as in Les Paul, Gibson, but that's not just the name. He's a famous guitarist and was foundational in the electric guitar movement of the mid-20th century. So Django heavily influenced him. He heavily influenced a lot of characters in jazz and early rock and roll, and it continues to be a major influence. He's also really interesting because when he was 18, he was in a terrible fire, and he mostly lost the use of his two smaller fingers. And so generally speaking, he only played with two fingers on his fretting hand. Amazing stuff. Considering, go and just look him up. You can listen to him. Amazing what he can do. Really excellent rhythms, and there's a lot of really cool stuff to learn about. But we're not going to get into all that right now. But this is the background of the holding the way that I do, okay? And that is, you basically make a fist with your thumb sticking out, not a fist like you're going to punch somebody, but a fist with your thumb sticking out, and the pick goes right in there, okay? Now what's the deal? And you only have just the tiniest bit of it still sticking out. Now what's the deal? Why do this? It looks awkward, and you might find it awkward. I mean, again, I'm not saying this is for everybody. I'm just explaining how I hold it. Now here's why. You get really excellent, okay, you get really excellent attack, and you can do a lot with your palm, with muting. You can strike doing chords very easily. You can strike, and all of the power is coming from your wrist. So your hand is just basically in a kind of fist, and all of the power is in your wrist. So you can do rhythm work, and you can go right into melody work without having to radically change how you're positioning your hand and how you're holding the pick. It's all the same. And this is basically the natural way. You see how my arm is moving right here. This is the natural way for striking, especially if you are coming across and you're doing a strum, up or down strum. This is very natural, and you see all the power is in my wrist and forearm. It gives you a lot of control. You can get very precise with the way you're striking the strings, and it's keeping your fingers out of the way. Sorry, fingers. It's keeping them out of the way. Right? If they're out like this, you might be. Now, I am not. There's some amazing guitarists out there that do something called hybrid picking, and there's various forms of hybrid picking. That's where you're combining playing with the pick and playing with your fingers. Incredible stuff. I just go with the Gypsy Jazz method here, with the pick and my flat And again, all my fingers are rolled up in their way. Now I can use the pads on the outside of my fingers as mutes. So if I want to mute some of the strings, I can easily do that. Like right now, I'm muting the top 3 strings, and I can play the bottom 3, and the top 3 are not going to, because I'm letting it rest on my finger there. You can also use palm muting, is very easy and natural with this style. So again, develop your own style. Every guitarist is going to be unique, right? So you need to just explore the different ways of holding it and see what feels natural. I played with the open hand position for many years, and it wasn't until maybe a couple years ago that I learned about Django Reinhardt. I knew of his music, but I got a method book about Gypsy Jazz that talked about him extensively and described this, and the author was describing how he had to kind of relearn holding the pick, but ultimately found this to be the superior method. And so I went through relearning, and I found that it made it a lot more natural, made it a lot easier and more natural for me to play, and really allowed me to develop further and quicker than I had been before. So this is why I recommend it to you as a beginner. If you start out using this, I think you'll find it more natural, and it's not going to anchor you in any one spot, because one of the things you're going to learn as you develop is where you strike, where you hit the string is going to give you different tones. And so you don't want to be just stuck in one spot and the only place that you can do is like right here. You want to be able to move around, you want to be able to throw real long strokes, and you know, this gives you a lot of freedom. It keeps your fingers out of the way. It gives you a lot of power when you want to really strike. It's all in the forearm and wrist, and it's a very natural way to play the guitar. So in this segment we're going to demo some different picks, and you can hear the different sounds. Generally speaking, thinner picks are going to allow you to have smoother sounding rhythm work where you're striking chords across most or all of the strings, and thicker picks are going to give you stronger attack on lead, on melody and individual notes and that sort of thing. So I'm starting off with a gold standard, this is a Fender Heavy, and just a good all-around pick. Still allows some bend, it bends some, but it's rather firm. And again, I'm holding the pick like this, where my hand is basically flat against the guitar. This allows me to do long strikes and short strikes, and the power is in my wrist and forearm, not in my fingers, which I'm mostly just getting out of the way unless I'm using them to mute a string. So here I have, I'm also working this through my Fender Mustang modeling amp on just a basic clean tone. I've got the volume about halfway up, the tone about halfway up. So just a nice mellow tone. Just running the A minor pentatonic scale. I'm not trying to do anything fancy or flashy, because I just want you to hear the differences between these various picks. Now the next pick, this is a little bit thicker. This is a Ernie Ball, and very good quality. This is a 1.5 millimeter. So this is got almost no bend, very minimal bend in it, and so it's going to give me, you can hear a bit more powerful response. The type, the material that they use to make them is also going to give you different tonal options. This, although it is a very heavy, thick pick, it's soft in the sense of the edges are very rounded, and so it doesn't have a really poppy sound, but it is more of a powerful, dark tone. these next picks are in a series. These are traditional, like what you might call a Gypsy Jazz pick, where this one is made from wood, and this is a very nice sculpted pick from, I believe it's US Blues. So you see it's made to be held the way that I'm holding it, because it's got a groove for your finger, and then it's got a groove for your thumb. See, these are a little pricey. These are more than $1 a piece, and they're a little pricey, but they're very, very high quality. Now this one is wood, so wood is going to give you nice warm response. It doesn't have the tinniness of some of the plastics. Very nice, warm, very comfortable. I love these picks. They're very comfortable, and they're contoured, which as you play them they will actually shave slightly. So if you're doing rhythm work, let me turn back the volume of it. You can do rhythm work with it. Still sounds good. It's going to have a heavier attack than a light, thin, flexible pick, because of course there's absolutely no flexibility in these. And they also come in various forms of bone and horn, all natural materials. This old style, these are replicating the picks of the 19th and early 20th century, the kind of stuff that Django Reinhardt would have been playing on. This is a very nice translucent horn, I believe. Very nice pick. So those are, again, a little bit more pricey and more selective, but it goes with, if you really want to step into this pick style, the Gypsy Jazz pick style, then those picks are actually crafted to be held like that. Now next, this is a jazz pick by Dunlop. I really like Dunlop. Is a US made brand. I believe all of their stuff is still made in the US. Very, very good quality. This is a relatively heavy pick. It has minimal bend, but it's also got some nice, the lettering on it is actually raised, so you get a little bit of friction. So a lot of picks, you can get these options that have a little bit of a grip on them, so if you have an issue with holding on to your picks. And jazz picks, and they go all the way down to even smaller ones, jazz picks tend to be pointier on the tip than other picks and give you the ability to make very, very precise but very light strikes. Again, that's with a very nice little jazz pick by Dunlop. Another Dunlop offering. This one is a kind of unusual one. It's got this teardrop rather than a triangular shape, and it's very small, but it's got thumb grooves that are cut into it, and it's very thick and hard, but it's got a nice contoured edge on it. And this is also very good for this style of holding. I find that this gives a strong, powerful tone, but somewhat on the darker side because of that rounded edge. It gives you very precise strikes, but they're not tinny and twangy sounding. Very nice pick by Dunlop there. Another one, this is also going to be a hard pick in that it is not flexible, but on a very different tonal point. This is a rounded, I think they call this an Americana. Very nice pick, very nice. And this one is great for like old style rhythm work. It's almost muted the way that it's so rounded, and the edge, even though it's a very hard material, the edge is soft from being so rounded. Great for rhythm work. And this is an example of, this is very good for rhythm work, but it is not a thin pick. And so it's not flexible, it's hard, but the edges are so soft and rounded that you get a very mellow tone out of it. Another good offering. And finally we're going to end with, here is a actually truly thin pick, okay? And these are, I tend to stay in the harder range. I don't use these too much. Their attack is a little softer than I like. I prefer the harder attack. You're going to, generally speaking, the thinner ones are primarily for rhythm. So these are great for rhythm, but I find that the real thin flexible picks, it's just not my choice, generally speaking, because I don't think it has enough attack on individual notes. But the key, as always, is to find what you like. And so this is just a few of the picks that I like and some options, but there are so many options out there, different materials, different shapes, and so I highly recommend that you find something that you enjoy and that works for you, because that's ultimately what matters.